Hi, and welcome back to Module 2, Lesson 3. In the last lesson, we talked about the activities associated with business operations. And on this lesson, I want to talk about what you're going to sell. So we talked about what needs to happen and the things that you need to do to keep your business running. And now we're going to talk about the different options you have of products that you can sell. So there are 3 basic categories of products that you can sell. And we're going to dive in deep. I'm just going to jump right in and we're going to talk about each of those. The first category of products is actual physical products. We'll come back to that and get into some detail on that in a second. The second type of product you can sell is an intangible product. Sometimes people call this an information product. And we'll come back and cover the details on that as well. And the third type of product you can sell actually isn't a physical or an intangible product, but it's a service. So let's go all the way back to the physical products, because you're gonna have some options. If you're interested in selling physical products, you have a lot of options to choose from on this type of business model. The first thing that you need to decide is, are you interested in selling wholesale products or are you interested in selling products retail? A wholesale business model is going to be business to business, and you're going to be selling to other business owners who will be reselling your product. A retail business model is going to be business to consumer. Now you can do a hybrid of these 2 types of models, but I would recommend that if you're thinking about a hybrid, to look at your company in terms of departments. What type of wholesale department are you going to run, and what type of retail department are you going to run? Let me talk to you a little bit. If you're thinking about doing wholesale products, let me talk to you a little bit about pricing. Here's a big secret on this. If you're going to develop products for wholesale, you're going to have to sell them at half of the retail price. That means you're going to have them manufactured, or you're going to have to personally be able to make them for 1/3 of the wholesale cost. So an example of wholesale pricing would be this. Let's say you have a widget and you want to sell it for $18 retail. Let's say you have an Etsy shop or an online store, and that's the suggested retail price of your product. The wholesale price of that product is going to have to be $9. And the manufacturing cost of that product is going to have to be no more than $3. You need to have 1/3 of that cost to pay for the actual expense of the product built into the price. Then you need another 1/3 to pay for an additional round of product to reinvest into your inventory. And then you have to have some profit margin, and that's what the last 1/3 is going to indicate. It would be a really bad idea to ever sell a product wholesale that costs you 50% of the wholesale cost. The reason why that's a bad idea is because you will only have enough money to make another round of product, and you won't actually be making any profit. That's just a simple way to look at wholesale pricing, but it's something that nobody explained to me when I got started in business, and I want you guys to know that because I can save you a lot of heartache if you start to understand those concepts right now. So other questions that you can ask yourself about a wholesale product. Is this product going to be a one-time purchase, or is it going to be a subscription purchase? The answer to either one of those questions is going to lead to a different type of business model. Are you going to have a subscription type business model, or are you going to have a single purchase type of business model? That's just another thing to think about in deciding what you want your business to look like. Another question you can ask yourself in regards to wholesale product is, are you going to have a single line of products, or are you going to have a line of multiple products? Whenever I started the Day Designer company, we had a single line of products. We had one product, a planner. As we've grown, we've played with merging into different markets and different product categories. But you can have a wholesale line with just one product. If you can create a wholesale line from just one product, you'll be able to experience a benefit called economies of scale. And what economies of scale means is it just doesn't take you as much time or money or energy to create a single line of products as it does to create a multiple line of products. Economies of scale is also something that you want to keep in mind and try to see if you can build in as you grow your business. Now I want to talk to you really quickly about one more type of product option you have if you're interested in selling physical products, and that's retail. There are a few questions that you want to ask yourself if you're interested in going into the business to consumer space, and these are those questions. The first question you need to ask yourself is, are you going to be a brick and mortar store, or are you going to have an e-commerce storefront? And there are pros and cons to each. A brick and mortar store has to stay open a certain number of hours every week. And it also sometimes requires you to work weekend hours or Saturday hours. You're going to have a certain amount of fixed overhead with rent and expenses and utilities and things like that. And you're also going to have to make sure that your store stays clean and well merchandised a lot of time. So back to the concepts about strengths and working to your strengths, think about those factors when you're considering opening a retail store. You might want to do a retail store, a brick and mortar store, and an e-commerce store combination and hybrid. If you are interested in developing an e-commerce store, I have to give a big endorsement to the platform Shopify. It's what I use for my personal e-commerce storefront, and I highly recommend it to anyone going forward. We'll have a list of resources for you to use in that department, and Shopify is at the top of my list. If you're considering going the retail route, there are two more questions I want you to think about. The first one is this: are you going to buy from multiple vendors or just one? So basically what I mean by that is, are you going to carry a lot of different types of products from a lot of different wholesale providers, or are you just going to go to one wholesale provider and buy that product alone and then redistribute it through your retail establishment? The second question you need to ask yourself, if you're going to go into a retail environment, are you going to be manufacturing your own products, or are you going to be buying and reselling someone else's products? Either way can totally work. Obviously, in my current business, Day Designer, we manufacture our products and then sell those retail. In the physical product world, both the wholesale model and the retail model can work for different people. You really just need to investigate your market to determine which business model or which type of business model is going to work better for you. Now I want to spend a couple of minutes talking to you about intangible products. And a lot of times in the online world, these are called information products. But there are a couple questions that you can ask yourself if you're thinking about selling information products. The main question is, are you going to sell intangible products online or offline? So an example of an intangible product being sold online would be something like this e-course. And an example of an intangible or information product being sold offline might be something like a workshop or a conference or an event. Both of those models can be really successful because people love to learn and grow. And if you can learn how to teach people the things they want to know, or you can provide connection and community for them at an online event, both of those models can be very successful in the information products space. Another question you can ask yourself in the intangible product space is, are you thinking about creating a subscription type product or a one-time product? This e-course is a one-time purchase, but there might be e-courses out there that are subscription-based, or communities that are subscription-based that you can pay a monthly fee to and get ongoing engagement or teaching. We'll definitely talk more about physical products and information products later on in Module 3 when I dive into teaching you about product funnels and the right way to build your product offerings. The last type of product or offering that I want to talk to you guys about is the service offering. There are several questions very important for you to ask yourself if you are considering being a service provider. The first question I want you to ask yourself if you're thinking about going into a service-based business is, what is your level of expertise? And this is where the whole following your passions thing comes into play. You might love taking pictures, but if you don't really know how to work your camera or edit your photos and be able to deliver a good product, it's going to be hard for you to position yourself as an expert in that space. So if you're trying to start a business in the service space, think hard about what your expertise is, and then consider trying to offer a service in that vein. Another question you can ask yourself if you're considering the service business model is, do you want to build a local business or do you want to build a national business? And a lot of service providers feel like it's best for them to offer a local service. This is where I think I have a very different opinion than some business coaches. I would tell you that no matter what type of business you're trying to build it on a national level. You're always going to have local clients, but in today's day and age, we have the internet, we have social media, And you want to position yourself as an expert in anybody's mind that's willing to listen. And with the internet and with technology, there's probably always going to be a way for you to offer that service on a national basis. So I would really encourage you to think bigger than locally and think nationally in setting up a service-based business and in growing your brand that direction. The last question I want you to ask yourself, if you're considering a service-based business, has 4 points. So you might want to take notes on this. And that question is, do you want to offer your service via a subscription, by the hour, as a license, or for outright purchase? You also might want to do a hybrid of all those different types of service offerings. For example, lawyers use a retainer-based system for their services, which is kind of like a subscription. If you're a graphic designer, maybe you want to put some of your clients who use you every month on retainer, and that can work out well for both you and them. It means consistent income for you, and it means that they can budget their expenses. You might want to merge that with a by the hour fee for clients that are new to using you or don't use you very often. Another thing I would recommend if you are considering growing a service-based business is put yourself in your client's shoes. We will talk about this later on in the branding module, but I want to get you started thinking about that now. When you're building a service business, sometimes you want your clients to conform to your processes. But you have to remember that your client is not necessarily who you are, and they might work a different way than you are. If you can adapt to their needs, you'll be a much more successful service-based business. And we'll dive into that later on in one of the future modules, and we can also discuss it in the forums if you have a question about that. The last thing I want you to think about, and this is so important, is can the business itself be a product? So we've talked about physical products, we've talked about intangible products, and we've talked about service-based offerings. But I want you to step back and look at your business as a whole. Can you sell that business? Part of the secret to setting up a business that's saleable is making sure you have the right systems and operations in place. We'll talk about systems and operations in Module 3. For now, what I want you to think about is, yes, you might be selling products, physical products, or information products, or services, but how can you grow that business so that you can sell the entire thing? Something to think about on that is, what are your business assets? And just like you have personal assets of strengths and gifts and talents and skills, your business also has assets. Some of those might be trademarks, copyrights, goodwill, customer lists, social media accounts, connections, some of your systems and processes, and maybe even some trade secrets. So as you're growing your business, no matter what kind of business it is, I want you to think about, how could you hand the keys to someone tomorrow if they walked in and said, I'm gonna write you a check for $1 million. I've never heard of that happening, but that's not to say that it won't, so just be prepared. We have a worksheet attached to this lesson, so take a minute and fill it out, and I'd love to talk with you guys about this over in the forums if you have any questions. We will move on to the next lesson, which is Lesson 4 in Module 2, and it's all about entrepreneurial archetypes. I'm excited to teach you guys about this, so I'll see you over there.